Chapter 3, Day 3, 10:03 a.m. Berlin, Germany. Alice smiled as she gazed at her window. The vibrant metropolis drew into form from behind the clouds. Soon the plane started its descent over the overcast city after the 90-minute flight from Gatwick. Berlin, built over centuries on the banks of the Spree River, was home to more bridges than Venice. Strewn with cultural paradoxes and markers of science, the arts, politics, and media. She reached for her overnight carry-on and stepped off the aircraft after landing. The sun peered through scattered clouds, lightening her anguish. Outside the main arrival terminal, Kala waited her turn in the long queue for a cab. Several minutes later, one rolled toward her and a cab driver sprang out, hopping to the curb with a buoyant spring.
Wohin? Fräulein, wer zu?
Kala grabbed her carry-on. To the Pergamon Museum. He smiled, showing a grin littered with gold teeth.
Any suitcases, Fräulein?
His English was accented but understandable. She stepped into the car. No, I travel light. By the time they navigated past Adenauerplatz in the heart of former West Berlin, Kala was running late. Traffic crawled, a stark contrast to central London that morning. She settled into the leather seat and glanced over her shoulder, watching as the car turned down another street. Was it the constant smirks she received from the driver? They seemed to come every 5 minutes as he beamed gold teeth looking back in the rearview mirror. Though good-humored enough, he conversed little during the journey. A nagging sensation haunted her. It had started at Gatwick Airport, then through customs. She peeked once more in the rear window. Nothing was out of the ordinary. Kala checked her watch. 10:55 a.m. Her appointment was in 5 minutes. How much further, driver?
Nicht weit. Not far. Not far. Another 10 minutes, maybe.
Kala opened her shoulder bag and dipped her hands deep to locate her electronic tablet. She fished it out and turned it on. The itinerary showed that at 11 o'clock, they were to meet Herr Brandt, the director of the museum, for a private tour of the Pergamon, accommodating 3 galleries. Work then began at 11:30 in a private museum room. The taxi nosed into a parking space on the busy street, several meters from the main doors.
Du hier. The Pergamon Museum, Fräulein.
The triple-winged complex on Berlin's Museum Island stood perched above the edge of the Spree River. Its neoclassical structure reflected in the water below against the blue sky and scattered clouds. It looked even more palatial than she had imagined. The prominent landmark had sustained severe damage in the war. During the air raids on Berlin, Kala was competent in her assessment. Though the legitimacy of some collections remained controversial within its vast walls, the Pergamon showcased antiquities, Islamic art, and Babylonian architecture she desperately wanted to see. She wanted to discuss the Market Gate of Miletus and the Ishtar Gate, including the Processional Way of Babylon and the Mashata facade with Allegra.
I think you're in for a long wait.
The taxi driver said.
I'll let you out here, Fräulein.
Crowds lined the building's entrance as the late morning sun peeked through the clouds. Kala glanced outside and nodded her thanks. Dankeschön. I can walk from here. Where's the main entrance? He pointed ahead.
Up the stairs. I don't think you can go in today. So much trouble is going on.
Trouble? Kala reached in her pocket, searching for the euros she'd withdrawn at the airport cash machine upon arrival. She handed the taxi driver a 50-euro note. Keep the change. The taxi driver drove off, leaving Kala standing in front of the stairs leading to the entrance. Police fenced the entry grounds of the museum. Perhaps there was another way in. She advanced toward the growing queue. Only a few yards ahead, the entrance remained closed. Kala stood on her toes, glancing above a group of French students in front of her. She scrutinized the glass facades. Authorities appeared to have evacuated the museum and had quarantined several evacuees. They waited in an orderly queue on the other side of the main doors. The cab driver was right. The queue hadn't moved an inch in the 5 minutes she'd waited. When the group in front of her made a move, she edged closer to the entryway. Streams of others made their way off the island. Where was the Pergamon Pass Allegra had sent her last night by courier? The police officer with a megaphone attempted a multi-language announcement down the queue. Das Museum ist geschlossen. The museum is closed. Le musée est fermé, belted the foghorn voice from within the crowd. Calla found the laminated pass in a bundle of papers at the bottom of her bag. She stopped the officer when he got to her section of the queue. Entschuldigen Sie bitte. Eh? Her German was confident. Darf ich bitte rein? She said, excusing herself and asking if she could go in. The officer didn't move a muscle.
Nein, es tut mir leid.
No, why? She said. He continued his parade down the queue, and she began a chase after him. Excuse me, sir. My colleague, Allegra Driscoll, is working with the board of the museum. Here's my pass. I'm meeting her here. The cop didn't flinch, but he understood her.
I'm sorry, nobody's going in today. Now move aside.
Calla patted her pockets for her cell phone. The one Mason had given her was in her carry-on. She'd configured it the night before she left London. It was a costly system with a sophisticated GPS program to identify her preset numbers and personal details. With this, she could locate Allegra. Her own smartphone, though more primitive, was in her left jacket pocket. A local service provider picked up the device and her fingers moved quickly, typing a prompt message to Allegra. Held up at the entrance. Were you inside? Oh. Noon rays hit her face, warming her cheeks, making it seem more like a midsummer afternoon. Calla glanced upward as irritation thundered through her. She video dialed. Allegra. No pickup. The voicemail came on. I'm going to reset into other text message. Have any crushing? I'm off to the hotel. Her throat tightened as she placed the phone in her pocket.
How interesting that we carry cell phones with us, but choose not to be reached when we are most needed.
Calla zipped her head round, following the German accented male voice from behind. Prying eyes speared into her. The voice had come from a sneering gentleman who was a few feet away. She ignored his remark. He caught her gaze and maneuvered closer, extending a firm handshake.
I'm Manfred Biermann. Not from Berlin, are you?
Calla raised an eyebrow. What gave me away?
You seem a little lost.
Could you tell me why the Pergamon is closed today? She asked.
I take it you've not been keeping up with German news.
She shook her head.
Please, allow me to explain.
Barman wore a dark trench coat with a trilby hat, pinched at the sides, and could have come straight off a 1940s film set. As they ambled a few feet from the queue, Calla detected hints of tobacco, cigars, maybe. He led her from the dispersing line toward a bench on the museum grounds. Calla glanced back at the glass entrance. The police, efficient in manner, questioned everyone. One by one, the officers took down statements and checked identities.
The German media has been reporting about ancient artifacts that went missing from Berlin vaults during the war.
Biermann began. I see.
These are due to be returned, inaugurated at the Pergamon today.
What, artifacts?
Aren't you familiar with the Pergamon Museum or Berlin's cultural history? This is a big inauguration for Berlin, I assume.
You assumed wrong, she said, twitching her lips. The museum closed in 1939 at the outbreak of war. In 1943, it took just a few hours to destroy it. One of the chief treasures in Berlin's proud cultural heritage, the Pergamon, burned as British bombs blasted holes in its structure late in November 1943. Should I carry on? She said, smirking. Fireman made a move to speak, but was cut off. Bombing destroyed the entire West Wing in February 1945. In the last days of the war, battles on the museum's grounds between the SS and the Russian Red Army forces left its walls blackened and its exhibition rooms destroyed. Shall I continue? He opened his lips to speak.
Why?
Several precious items from the museum's collection were removed and hidden in mine shafts. Most were preserved. They looted many others at the end of the war. Then the Russians returned much of this so-called trophy art from 1955 to 1960, including the Pergamon altar. Bierman let out a short cough.
You well informed.
She grimaced. I should be. After all, I look after an entire division at the British Museum. Calla averted his gaze and placed dark glasses over her eyes. I know what I need to.
Good. Now, have you heard of Priam's treasure?
Calla knew, but somehow he filled her in with great pride as several new police vehicles arrived. Except for the last police evacuees, the crowds had vacated the open plaza. Sirens blared across the bridge, and Calla and Bierman stopped to watch the commotion. A moment later, Bierman leaned in.
Priam's treasure is one of those collections we've been waiting for since they stole it from us during the war. In 1945, it was taken from a protective bunker underneath the Berlin Zoo, only 2 kilometers from here.
Calla drew back. Didn't German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann discover the artifacts, mostly gold, copper shields, and weapons, in Anatolia in 1837?
Yes, but
She continued. If I'm correct, he named them after Priam, king of Troy. Schliemann smuggled the loot to Berlin, convinced he'd found proof of the Iliad's ancient city.
that's right. It's a treasure of gold and other artifacts from ancient Troy. Schliemann discovered it when he excavated a hill in the Ottoman Empire around 1873.
He added. She pursed her lips. But that's a debatable fact, Herr Bierman. Nevertheless, the treasure is priceless. He leaned forward, catching Calla off guard. She edged back as he attempted a whisper in her ear.
There's more.
We said, more.
The other little secret is that 5 governments know there's another treasure within the cache.
Bierman added.
One that was planted, or hidden, should I say. The Hadish manuscript.
Calla raised an eyebrow. How did he know about the Hadrius? Classified information. Although she'd come late into the talks about Task Force Carbonado, they had publicized nothing about the Hodrayus. She'd not read the full brief, but many wanted the manuscript. Bierman smirked, grabbing her full attention.
The Hadish manuscript has vanished repeatedly over the decades. Many are now attempting to determine its true value. It's priceless.
How so?
It's written in the same script as the Voynich document, they say. Until yesterday, many believed the Voynich language was a made-up medieval farce. Thanks to the Hadrius, today they're eating their words.
Callas debated whether to entertain his story or move on about her business. How do you know this? She asked.
I get around.
She lifted a brow. I guess so.
She is still with me? Bierman asked.
Her nod edged him further into his story.
Yes. Last night, a museum worker was inspecting the items to go on display, and he found the manuscript within Priam's treasure. My guess is whoever stashed it there hoped no one would find it.
How do you know? Bierman reached into his trench coat and pulled out a business card.
I work for RTL, the German media station.
She inspected the card but made no move to take it. Alice suspected he'd paid for the information. A museum worker must have sold him this story. She shuffled her feet on the concrete as a warm breeze caressed her face. I can see the pride the museum would have in returned artifacts, but not enough reason to cause a tourist standstill. He replaced his card.
There's no verified record of the document's existence, yet 5 Western governments are in a bidding war for it. It was last seen in the 60s. From what I hear, someone secretly circulated photographs.
Calla probed him further, interested in his version of the rumors. What's so fascinating about the Hedrike manuscript? Bierman pulled out a cigarette from his jacket pocket. With a slight sneer, he tapped it on an overused cigarette case and lit it with an expensive lighter. He let out a little laugh.
It's written in language and symbols no one has ever understood. Cryptographers made comparisons with the Voynich decades ago before the Harziers disappeared. The manuscript's age isn't determined in carbon dating tests have left debates as to its actual age.
The fumes he puffed stung Cala's nostrils, confirming her decision never to take up smoking when offered in high school. She fanned them from her face. Where does the hydreas come from? He blew the smoke away and took another puff.
Something maniac questioning.
Cala scanned his face. What do you think the manuscript says? Bierman finished his cigarette and tossed it to the ground. He shrugged.
Some believe its contents in for military tactics. Others say it contains insights into world creation. The more adventurous ones think it's a treasure map of some sort. Whether you believe any of these myths or just value the manuscript for its own historical interest, it still makes it valuable. Look at this.
He fished for a document from his leather briefcase and shoved it in her hands. Cala recognized the memo, a scan of various classified documents identical to those shared 2 days ago in London. With a rise in afternoon temperature, she shifted her feet, pulling back her hair into a makeshift chignon. Bierman retrieved the paper and slotted it in his case.
A specialist has arrived today who can translate it.
She'd heard enough, and her thoughts transferred back to Allegra as the light hit her eyes. It all made sense now. Allegra's historical and linguistic expertise with ancient manuscripts would be invaluable here. She must have known about this all those months ago when she'd invited Cala to her house to discuss the manuscript. Thank you for the history lesson, Herr Bierman, but I must go. I'm meeting someone, and I'm late.
Want to know why the museum has been evacuated?
Cala had almost forgotten.
2 hours ago, I heard Priam's treasure was stolen from the museum vaults.
Cala paused. That's impossible.
Oh, yes.
She checked the museum entrance again. Allegra had to be inside. Cala rose. Bis später, Herr Bierman. Bye for now. Aware she wouldn't get any closer to the entrance, she sent a new text message to Allegra. Can't get into the museum. Please meet me at the hotel. Eyes blinking, Cala turned to see if Bierman had gone. How had he gotten such classified data in under 48 hours? She proceeded the same way she'd come, down the concrete stairs and over the small bridge. Cala sipped her head forward toward the street. A hurrying pedestrian jolted her. The blow to her chest threw her off balance in one forceful shove. Cala lost her footing and plummeted to the ground, landing on the concrete with her hands under her chest. Raising her head, she locked eyes with a towering figure who then hurried through the tourists standing by. When she opened her mouth to protest, she only caught sight of the back of his head. With one blink, he'd vanished. Her carry-on had landed a few steps from her feet, and she reached for it and rose. With a cold hand to her face, blood streamed from a cut above a bruised chin and left a trickle at her feet. Chapter 4. Cala held a tissue over her chin. The throbbing pain subsided as she slumped into the waiting cab. She dumped her carry-on in the adjacent seat. How far to the Hotel Adlon? Not long. 20 minutes. Are you okay, miss? Yes, thanks. She checks for messages. Nod. Where the cab driver swerved the Mercedes into lunchtime traffic. Ella reclined on the leather seats as the taxi cruised past the Kaiser Wilhelm Gedächtniskirche, the memorial church at Breitscheidplatz. The damaged tower stretched against the blue sky, a permanent reminder of war destruction. Savoring the warm breeze that blew through the taxi, Cala laid her head back, forgetting the pain from her chin. They continued past Checkpoint Charlie, their former Berlin Wall crossing point between East and West. By the time they'd driven back toward the former eastern part of the city, it was almost 3:00 p.m. local time. The Mercedes pulled up in front of Hotel Adlon on Unter den Linden Boulevard, facing Pariser Platz, a space that hinted at the grandeur of the Prussian capital. Cala collected her belongings and paid the driver. Dankeschön. She stepped out onto the pavement above the grand entrance of the hotel. Brandenburg Gate stood to the left. Across the street, the sidewalk was home to several official buildings, including embassies. Cafes served late lunches, baked goods, and hot drinks. Cala could almost smell the butter kuchen cakes. Eierkuchen pancakes served with lemons and powdered sugar, and sweet dough dumplings, the Berliner Ballen. Seated cafe customers basked in the sun, sipping coffee, reminding Kala of her hunger. She set a hand on her stomach and steered through the double doors, clutching her bag as she strode toward the reception desk. Guten Tag, smiled the receptionist. I have a reservation under Kala Kress. The woman checked her screen. Aha, Frau Kress. You're in the Linden Suite. The meet? Yes. One suite for Kala Kress, reserved by Allegra Driscoll. But has Frau Driscoll already checked in? The woman hit several keys on the keyboard. Let me see. Yes, she arrived yesterday. Kala thanked the woman for her room card and steered toward the elevators. The Baroque-styled Linden Suite spared no luxury for its exclusive guests. April's sun peered through the vast windows of the corner suite with a view onto Unter den Linden. Garden-fresh white lilies and yellow roses arranged in a magnificent bouquet on the coffee table, and a chilling champagne bottle awaited her arrival. The room reflected the appetite of Prussian kings for design. After the porter gave her a quick tour of the room, she inspected the separate bathroom and adjacent living space, while he waited at the door, ready to leave. Will that be all? Kala ran a finger over her clotting wound. Thanks. Do you have a first aid kit? The porter moved to the bathroom and produced one. He set it on the table in the living room. She tipped him a handful of euro coins. Thank you. I think I have everything now. Kala closed the door behind him. The pain from her accident resurfaced. She grabbed a ripe plum from the fruit basket and bit into its skin before checking her phone. No new messages. It had been over 3 hours. Was Allegra okay? She threw the pit in the wastebasket and picked up the first aid kit. With one hand on her chin, she located the antiseptic and a small Band-Aid. Kala gulped down an aspirin with the water supplied in the fridge and unpacked her belongings. Soon she settled on the upholstered couch facing the window, then kicked off her shoes before turning on her electronic tablet. She checked her diary. Allegra had left London a week ago via St. Petersburg and then on to Berlin. Kala waited on the sofa, staring at the unresponsive phone as she dressed her wound with a thin plaster. Her eyes moved toward the window, taking in the details of the suite. She smiled. The first-class treatment was Allegra's style. How much did she know about Allegra, even after spending so much time with her? Was Biermann right? If the Hadriz existed and was a legitimate artifact, what was it exactly? The British government wanted it, let alone the other 4. If anyone could decipher the historical riddles around this manuscript, it would be Allegra. Kala stroked her forehead and guzzled down more cold water. Her eyes shut as the aspirin worked its drowsiness through her bloodstream. Central London, 3 p.m. Nash found his car a few steps from the U.S. Embassy. Gray clouds above showed no leniency. They scattered across the London skyline, creating an overcast blanket that sent a cold current through the darkening city. The wind picked up, bringing with it a heavy mist that obscured vision. He fastened his leather jacket, then pulled open the door to his new BMW and checked his cell phone for messages. Kala had left the meeting early, only a couple of days ago at the Hadrius briefing. It wasn't like her to go without a word to him. Nash checked the rearview mirror, only to glimpse at the tiny scar on his chin, undetectable to the naked eye. He smiled to himself. That's how he'd first met Kala. Charming, inhibited, with piercing eyes. Such a curious melange of emerald and amber. Worry snaked through him, and Kala was at the heart of it. She was in danger. The car ahead of him honked. He winced, needing to make an urgent phone call, and started his engine. Hand on the wheel, he reversed, letting the other vehicle out of the parking space. Then he killed the engine. He reached for the cell phone. The touchscreen lit up as he searched for his attorney's number. With the phone engaged, he waited a few minutes and tried the New York number again before leaving a message. Jonathan, it's Nash. I need to speak with you today. He clicked the end off. The cell phone rang twice. He answered it. Jonathan, any news for me? The stakeholders want an agreement soon. I'm sorry, said Jonathan on the other end. Your father refuses to release the funds. Don't. Nash's face heated, picturing the actual words his father had probably used. Would the old man not give up? He clenched a fist and brought it down hard on the dashboard. After all this time, Jonathan, doesn't he understand me? You two haven't always seen eye to eye. I know this bothers you. Nash tugged at his collar. Why can't he let go, Jonathan? You're his only child. He only wants the best. George hasn't always accepted your choices, Nash. But he's always been proud of your accomplishments. Nash already knew the answer to his next question. Was there something wrong with the proposal? No, Nash, it was impeccable. I've been your family lawyer for a long time. I think it is purely a conflict of interest. He thinks you could put the money to better use. Nash was quiet for a long time. He would have to revert to plan B. Is there something else, Nash? Jonathan said. Something's up. You are the most patient person I know, and it's not like you. You seem quite focused on this. Are you in trouble or someone you know? A girl, maybe? Nash breathed hard and hesitated before he spoke. She's in trouble. What kind of trouble? I'm not sure yet. I first saw her at the British Museum. Then we met properly at Denver Airport 3 years ago at check-in. She's actually a curator at the British Museum. We now work together. I need to sort this out before I help her. Now that she's in deep with ISTF, her life depends on what I do. I knew there was a girl involved. What's the issue? Nash let out a quick breath. Her safety. I should have known from the day we met. I was traveling back from a skiing holiday and she'd been on an anthropological trip to Denver. She rushed to the counter, sure she'd missed her flight. She knocked over my skis. I tried to retrieve them, and as they crashed to the floor, they clipped my jaw. She was horror-struck. I love a damsel in distress story, Jonathan said. That's just it. I was struck and in distress. She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, Jonathan. First time you ever talked about a woman, Nash. What happened then? You're a tough guy, and even skies won't bring you down. I cupped my chin with both hands and got quite a few concerned glares from the queue at the American Airlines counter. I then gave her the okay sign and threw my head back, laughing. Nothing was missing or broken, just a slight cut. Though Cupid's arrow injured you more than anything else, I see, Jonathan said. Kala's great, Nash said, smiling to himself. She chuckled and begged for someone to produce a first aid kit. She found a Band-Aid in her bag and placed it over my almost non-existent wound. And then she said the craziest thing to me. Why are you taking skis to London? The long flight back to London, with adjacent seats, perhaps changed my life. I wanted to get to know her, so much so that we chatted the entire 9 hours and 40 minutes. There was something different about her, mysterious. By the time we stepped off the flight at Heathrow, I knew my life had changed. Now, he hadn't realized he'd been quiet for several moments. How are you going to help her? Her life's in danger, and I want to close the deal on our project before I help her. She's now with ISTF as a cultural agent. But at that time, neither of us disclosed our links to ISTF until we found ourselves a few months later working on a joint classified case in Jakarta. They have her working on specialized projects for her in-depth knowledge of modern and ancient communication methods. Thought ISTF were the good guys. A specialist then, the best. ISTF has all the expertise they need in her. She pores over artifacts, codes, symbols, and language structures with ease, yet deflates after moments of genius into quietness and allows distance. She understands phonetics, symbols, and history like no one I know. No one is more straightforward and unpretentious. coupled with a no-nonsense attitude. There's a sadness or even loneliness. I once asked an innocent question, a compliment about her stunning dark hair and her eye. The amber in them has such an overpowering, an emerald glow. She didn't respond and never has. Maybe she likes to be private, Jonathan said, interrupting his thoughts. Is this business with your father connected to her? Yes, it is, but I can't share more. Not now. If those funds aren't released soon, I'll have to find another way. Someone powerful has marked her. I see, Jonathan said. It's my money, Jonathan. I know, but we need your father's signature. Give it 3 years. When you reach 35, he can't affect your decisions. You can do whatever you like with the inheritance from your grandparents. The silence, even with a typically upbeat Jonathan, was unbearable. I'm with you on this, Smash. We can always try again. Thanks, Jonathan. I know you tried. Nash switched off the phone. Where had it all gone wrong?